Hey folks, I'm Peter Melhorn. This fish story is about a guy named Joey Baird who not only catches a state record catfish and earns $10,000 in the process of catching that fish, but he gives the money away. Well, Joey Baird is a husband, he's a father, he's a police officer, he's a volunteer firefighter, and not least of all, he is an avid catfish angler. And on this fateful day, he decided to go chasing catfish on what was not exactly the best time to be out on the water.
It was on a Sunday, 4th of July weekend, so that weekend, with me being a local like I've always been, I normally stay clear of the lake to let the lake kind of simmer down a little bit. Everybody's out tubing and skiing and fishing part of it. That time of year, I normally won't get on the water until after dark.
Well, Joey was working a narrow area. He had marked some good fish, so he figured he may just need to sit back and wait.
I was focusing mainly on my river channel and my drop-offs right there with the heat of the summer being, and where I was really keening, the area I was keening in on was I know it's a huge mussel bed right there. So I kind of was scanning the area and I marked some good fish, anchored up on them. I'll set on big fish for a while to see if, they'll turn on. They're like me and you, we're gonna get hungry sometime throughout that day. We're gonna eat. That was the first fish of the night.
Now Joey is no stranger to catching big fish. He's done it before, but he knew when this fish hit, it was something special.
I'd caught an 84, I believe was the biggest one I'd caught up until that point, on the same body of water. And the 84, he hit hard too, he ripped drag, and the 84 took longer to get in than the state record.
Well, while he has caught big fish in the past, this fish felt different. He knew right away it was something bigger than anything he had ever hooked into before.
I had never heard a fish hit and rip drag like this one had. So it was almost like that fish was older, and he had some get up and go, just like me and you take off running a sprint. It won't no turning him on that sprint. But when he got winded, you could tell he was done.
Now, once Joey got this fish in the boat, he knew immediately it was not only bigger than any fish that he had ever caught or seen, but likely bigger than any blue catfish that has ever been caught in North Carolina.
But I knew instantly, just looking at that fish, that it was going to be state record. And it's kind of wild that you would say it right off the bat. This is state record right here, looking at that fish, but then you actually have a state record.
While Joey Baird had everything to gain by getting this fish to the scales and certified as a new state record, another guy had a lot to lose. $10,000 to be exact. That guy, Caleb Page, is the co-founder of Catch the Fever. They're a fishing rod company that offers up $10,000 to anyone that catches a state record on one of their rods.
It was late, it was probably 3 a.m. I got the call that somebody hooked a really big fish. Didn't really hear much about that after that, so I ended up going back to sleep, woke up, and about 10 a.m. they said that the guy had been hanging on to the fish. He definitely had caught a contender. They weighed it, they felt like it was definitely gonna be a state record, and when they were talking 124 pounds, I was like, wow, this ain't pounds or ounces. We're talking, they're for sure.
As it turns out, catching the fish was only half the battle. You see, to be eligible for the $10,000, the fish has to be weighed on certified scales, there has to be a witness, and most of all, it has to be released alive.
You don't expect to catch a state record. I try to put some big fish in the boat, but in that situation, I didn't have the means of transporting that fish, so I had to make phone calls. I had a toolbox at the house from prior tournaments years back that I'd had. Once we got the box down there, that fish wouldn't fit in it. I started calling Department of Game and Inland Fisheries on the North Carolina side and the Virginia side. When it comes to weighing a fish like that, Department of Game and Inland Fisheries does not have anything to do with that. And I think a lot of people kind of thought like me, they thought they did. You know, they would have connections with the wildlife biologist and be able to get them out there. But a wildlife biologist is kind of on his own. And going back to what weekend it was on a Sunday night, at the time, midnight, you know, it's a holiday weekend. So, you know, most people are in the bed, sleeping, getting ready to go back to work from a 3-day weekend.
Finding a biologist in the wee hours of the morning on a July 4th weekend is virtually impossible. So this meant that Joey had to be committed to going the distance to get this fish weighed and certified, and most of all, keeping it alive in the process.
That was a process in itself to try to get a biologist, and I think the whole process from start to finish, from the time I caught that fish till I got it certified and released, was 17 hours.
Now, just to be clear, folks, Joey could have easily thrown this fish into a cooler, killed it, and leisurely weighed it the next day. But Joey is like a lot of us that chase big fish, and we believe in CPR, catch, photograph, and release. And release that fish alive is exactly what Joey wanted to do.
When I showed up on scene, there was this big crowd of people standing in the bed of this truck in this big horse trough, and the blue was in there. They had bubblers, they had aerators, oxygen, everything like that. And when I showed up and I looked at it and I saw how dark that blue was, I was pretty happy with how it was going to look. I was so scared I was going to see that fish and it was going to be white, eyes glassed over, but the fish looked killer. The game warden showed up right there afterwards, and he said, you know, he was very impressed with the health of the fish when he got there.
It goes back to, you know, I've always been a CPR guy, you know, and my dad ran a guide business. My respect for the outdoors and these fish are just as much as anybody else, you know.
Well, in what looked like a Southern Baptist river baptism, these anglers went to great lengths wading out into the lake to make sure this fish swam off alive.
He wanted to go to a ramp that he could walk it out. He didn't want to just dump it in the water. We all lined up on the shore. They took the shirts off and walked the fish out there. They hovered in the water for a while, just kind of pulling him around, and then they released him. We all stood there for probably 30, 40 minutes kind of watching, making sure that the fish didn't come up, go back down, he wouldn't have any trouble, you know, fish stayed gone.
As if an already great story could not get any better, Joey had a confession to make.
You know, when I had got out of the bed of that pickup, I turned around and I said, "Which one of you is Joey?" And he said, "Right here." And he said, "Well, look, now that you're here, I have something I want to say." And I was like, you know, what's he gonna say? You know, did he not catch on a big cat fever rod? Like, you know, this seems like a confessional. And he said, "I want to make an announcement in front of everybody."
I knew in my mind what I was gonna do with the money right away.
What Joey said next shocked a lot of people.
He said, "I have decided that if this fish right here is a state record, I'm going to be donating it to our local hometown fire department." And I got chills. I still get chills like talking about it. People don't give money away. I mean, people donate $100, people donate $500, but nobody donates $10,000. Nobody does that. So for him to say that, I was just like, oh man, this is awesome. This guy, you know, me and him's gonna be friends for a long time. I just like being around people like that.
You know, that $10,000, it was a reason behind it, and I donated it to put towards a rescue boat that could potentially save a life in the near future. And we're still working on it, actually. I talk to the chief every now and again. I'm still volunteer firefighter and EMT for our county, still a local police officer as well, and I run my fence business. And now I do part-time guiding on Lake Gaston and Kerr.
Now, while it cost Catch the Fever $10,000, they could not be happier with where that money went. The angler who caught the fish and being associated with someone whose heart is truly in the right place.
I feel like, you know, the people that are using the products are really a reflection of how we are a lot of times. You know, we got the right demographic of people with the right attitude, and they're trying to accomplish pretty much what I feel like I'm trying to accomplish, you know, by them choosing our products.
it's one of those things that, you know, you play it back in your head, you're like, man, it's crazy to think that's the biggest catfish ever been caught out of Lake Gaston. Right now, biggest blue catfish in the state of North Carolina.
Well, folks, if you made it this far, thank you for watching. Here are a couple more videos that I think you're gonna like. I'd watch that one, and then that one. No, do that one first, and then that one. I don't know, just watch them both. They're both good.